Dear guests, warm welcome. Thank you all for coming to today's session. My name is Valihan. I'm Chief Supervision Officer of Financial Services Authority, and I'm going to be at your service today as a moderator. So before we start, let me do some important things first. There's an information that I have to share with you regarding the organizational matters and some fire safety stuff. So the QR code featured on your badge links to the official Telegram channel of the AIFC, so you'll stay updated on the latest information regarding the conference. Also login, password, Wi-Fi, press releases, and photos. So there also be text broadcast from the panel session on the Telegram channel as well. Also, you can find all information about the AFD in your special app, event.rocks, which is a platform for communicating, for connecting with conference speakers. And briefly about the safety measures. So in case of fire, there's a fire exits in mini atriums, C31, C32, C34, and near the public coffee. So today we're going to explore the rapidly evolving landscape of fund distributions. So where both challenges and opportunities abound, where we're also delving into how fund managers are navigating these changes, particularly in terms of expanding into new markets, tailoring offerings to meet these diverse regional needs. We'll also be discussing new markets and regions that are becoming increasingly important for fund distribution. And our panel will also explore some of the practical steps of this expansion. And by the end of this session, we'll hope you get some interesting insights into how to effectively expand your fund distribution network across borders. And now, without further ado, let me introduce our esteemed speakers. So, two speakers were going to be online, joining our sessions, and the rest presented here. So, Vincent Klaas is a global head of fund strategy and product expansion at Euroclear. He is responsible for development and expansion of Euroclear funds plays, which includes trading and custody, distribution data, and operational due diligence services across fund assets classes, such as money market, mutual funds, ETFs, as well as alternative and private market funds. Akber Khan has more than 25 years of experience in the investment industry and is an acting chief executive officer of Al Rayyan Investment. Al Rayyan Investment is a leading firm in the Gulf for corporate financial advisory and asset management. And Olivier Garin, our sales director at Carlyle Management. Olivier joined the company in April 2023 with close to 20 years of experience in international fund distribution. He brings a wealth of knowledge to his role. And Zamira Sundetova is a member of the management board of Skybridge Invest, head of Skybridge Invest branch in the AIFC. She has over 15 years of experience in brokerage and investment management. She previously held the position of deputy CEO at Forta Finance, Cessna Capital, where she supervised the investment direction. And finally, our esteemed speaker, Nikolai Shestak, is a partner at Zuber Capital Investment Company. He has 14 years with Zuber team, including engaging with EBRD, FMO as a cornerstone investors. So, let's proceed further. And my first question would be to Vincent. Vincent, can you hear us well? So Vincent, what are the challenges and opportunities shaping the landscape of fund distribution today, and of course, how has it changed recently in your view? I guess you're on mute, Vincent. Yeah, no worries. No? Can we put on the mic, please? Yes? That happens, sorry for that. So perhaps this is the reason, because the most interesting and topical subjects for the wealth management industry. So, you can feel how much energy here, so that mics are not working well, even there's a disturbance of the connection. Okay, maybe we'll come back to you, Vincent. Let's move on with you, Akbar. Yeah. So obviously, in this age of being client-centric, client-oriented, we all have in mind distinct needs of various markets. And my question to you would be, how do you tailor your fund offerings, to meet the specific needs of different markets, and how does this customization influence your distribution strategy? Please.
Thank you for the question, and it's great to be here. Great to be back in Astana. So that's a great question, and it's a very important question, and I think it really depends on the market. So there are a number of differences that we kind of would need to go through. Is a market more institutional, or is it more retail? How are you going to access them? So if it's a more retail, if the opportunity is more on the retail side, then how are you going to access the retail market? Is it through funds? Are you going to do tie-ups with private banks to access high net worth individuals? Would you do it directly? Would you open a presence directly instead of having partnerships? If it's institutional, do the institutions want funds? So different markets, in some markets, particularly for example in Asia, large institutions or even government institutions are happy to invest in funds. In other and there's a large reliance on that. In other markets, for example in the Gulf, so I'm based in Qatar, but across the Gulf, the very large clients have an aversion for funds. They want their own segregated portfolio or discretionary portfolio. So that you need to understand what you're targeting. Obviously, you need to understand what the local situation is. What are investors used to in terms of fees? What fee structures do they think are common? Different regions of the world have different norms for what is a reasonable management fee. And are there performance fees, are there not performance fees? So there's a number of different aspects which differ from market to market. The asset class, which asset classes are in demand in that market? And after all of, and there are a number of other areas as well, but after all of this, you then have to look at, where is the opportunity? If you understand the market, you look at whether it's the retail, institutional, the distribution, you look at all of this, but if it's all extremely well catered to already, if there's a lot of service providers already providing all of what the market needs, then you need to think, what is my niche? Why should I enter now? If it's a crowded market. However, if it's not a crowded market, then you have a very different approach, which is, how do I get early wins? How do I gain credibility in a market which doesn't have a lot of competition in it yet? So it depends very much on if you're, for example, distributing into, let's say, the US or European market, clearly very crowded. If you're distributing into certain parts of emerging or frontier markets, it could be very different.
Yep. Thank you, for sharing your views. And if we look at the region of Central Asia, so what opportunities do you see in distributing Islamic funds through the AIFC?
So when you're looking at, so sort of to tie the last question and this question together, a lot of the financial centers that you have globally are kind of a regional hub. So if you think of Singapore, Hong Kong, the catchment area for the capital is going to be Southeast Asia. If you look at sort of South Africa, the catchment area is going to be the African and Southern African region. If you look at the Gulf, the catchment areas will be the capital in the Gulf. So it's different when you're looking at a global jurisdiction which is recognized the world over, whether it's UCITS or whether it's Luxembourg or Cayman, etc. But for a lot of the regional financial centers, even if you are in Singapore and you have a Cayman fund, that's more likely to be from that area. So the interesting thing about the AIFC is that it's an interesting and exciting combination of a lot of these aspects, because the catchment area of the AIFC and Astana is Central Asia. The catchment area also has capital, because you clearly don't want to be in a financial center which is capital starved and is seeking capital. You want to be in a financial center which has capital and is looking to deploy. So that obviously is a big tick. The other big opportunity over here is that the markets are growing. There is still room for a significant number of service providers across asset classes to establish themselves. So again, great opportunities. And from our firm in particular, Aran Investment is a subsidiary of an Islamic bank in Qatar, the second largest Islamic bank in Qatar. So everything that we do, whether it's investment banking or asset management, everything we do is Sharia compliant. So for us, this is a fantastic financial center and fantastic platform, because really on top of all the other factors that I was mentioning, the real, for us, icing on the cake, if you like, is the huge opportunity on the Islamic side, given the populations of Kazakhstan and the region, and the fact that this is untapped. I mean, Islamic financial services are undersupplied globally. There is nowhere in the world where you have too much, because it's just it's a subset which is still growing. But in some areas, the undersupply is even greater, and this is one of those areas. So for us, the opportunities are tremendous.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Absolutely agree with you. Thank you for your invaluable insight. So, well, now that we have looked into the business side of things, I think it would be also good to explore some regulatory landscape governing the process of fund distribution. So, Olivier, I know that you have an extensive experience in international fund distribution. So, how do you navigate the regulatory complexities of entering, new markets? And of course, what strategies do you sort of employ to ensure compliance and, while maintaining this whole flexibility?
Hi. Morning to everyone, or good afternoon. Well, the question is, when you purely focus on the regulatory landscape, as mentioned by the panel a minute ago, I mean, depending on where you are and what fund structure you have, moving and capturing new opportunities is different. So, I mean, strategy-wise, we systematically have the same approach at Carlyle. So we have a country risk assessment, we look at local requirements, and from there, also mentioned, we explore, is there a need of local presence? Yes, no. We tend to have local partnerships, and this is what we prefer. But systematically, the strategy is the same. We only make a difference between EU and non-EU. Simply because within European Union, you've got passporting facility. I mean, we interact with our local regulators, SSF, and passporting and registration of our fund is easy within the EU. When it comes to outside of EU, then definitely we put more focus on the local requirements that we need to comply with. And going back to the EU kind of concept, I mean, more than registration and passporting and penetrating a new market, you have also some regulatory, I would say, tasks that you need to perform in order to service your client. So in Europe, it has been fairly standardized. So if you talk about MiFID, if you talk about solvency, if you talk about SFDR, GDPR, so you've got a lot of regulation that you need to comply with, and it's fairly okay from one country to the next. So from that perspective, the European Union or the kind of passporting within Europe and the requirements are fairly okay. So that's why we pay slightly more attention to what we do. And I mean, now focusing on our own approach to Kazakhstan. I mean, we've been at AIFC conference, so it's a Luxembourg event, and we've been facing AIFC representatives, and we had a conversation, and they've been greatly supportive from that perspective. So for us, when we were assessing what are the rules, local requirements within Kazakhstan that we need to comply with, and when we've performed step 1 and 2 that I've mentioned, which is the country analysis and assessing the local requirements, we came to AIFC and said, do we have the right understanding? Are those the rules we need to comply with? And frankly speaking, it's the first time a regulator has been that proactive and kind of validating what our compliance has been assessing in terms of requirements.
Thank you, Olivia, and perhaps our guest would be very much interested in what opportunities does Kazakhstan open for you, and what tools are required for the development of a fund distribution network, in your view. Left. Right. Thanks very much, Olivier. Zamira, if I may, you have also a wealth of experience in brokerage and investment manager. You're a member of the management board of Skybridge Invest and head of Skybridge Invest branch in the AIFC. And to what extent does your presence in the AIFC serve as a sort of gateway to broader regional or even international expansion of your fund distribution network?
Thank you so much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here today representing Skybridge Group of Companies. Thank you, Valihan, for your question. And in order to answer the question, I should give some background information on our group of companies. Today, Skybridge Invest itself is a leading investment firm operating within the mainland Kazakhstan jurisdiction and within the AIFC since the very beginning. In 2017, we established a physical presence here in Astana after... Sorry? Yes, it's okay. Our company is leading in many classical ways. We were engaged in the most notable IPOs and M&A deals, and as to numbers, currently our asset under management is more than $400 million, and we advised on transactions exceeding $100 billion over the last decade. And today, our group of company also consists of Skybridge Digital Finance, is our digital division that we established more than 2 years ago. Being customer-centric, we usually serve and strive to satisfy even the most sophisticated demand from our clientele, especially in digital assets. And in parallel with our strong expertise in classical market, we exploring an opportunity to provide digital assets and services. And this idea perfectly matched with the AIFC regulatory framework because AFSA did a lot in order to create a legislative basis for legal circulation of digital assets. As you may know, digital assets are not allowed to circulate within the Kazakhstan. The only jurisdiction we can do it is only AIFC. So this is how Skybridge Digital Finance was born, and this company today is not only a digital asset service provider, it is the company that is changing financial landscape by implementing financial digital services, and this opportunity gives us not only opportunities but also challenges. And we see that apart from classical ways of fund distribution today through Skybridge Digital Finance and based on the AIFC legislative framework, we can expand our services through tokenization of the units of the funds. Tokenization itself, it's completely not simple, but easy for understanding. Security token as AIFC, based on AIFC treatment, is conventional security that is issued, stored, and distributed via decentralized technology ledgers. So we think that via the tokenization we can expand and get access to pooled crypto investors and raise capital within the digital market and give it, return it into the AIFC. So I think that the main gateway, as Valihan asked me, is our subsidiary, Skybridge Digital Finance, which is licensed crypto investment firm, and we today can act not only as a broker, asset manager in conventional securities, but we also can tokenize and provide any financial services in relation to digital assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Zamira. Very impressive. Thank you for sharing your numbers as well. So, what strategies does Skybridge Invest use to engage potential investors within the AIFC, and especially those new to your fund offerings, including digital assets?
Our main strategy is know your client. By knowing our client and our client's need, we are expanding our services beyond the classical instruments, and we work with digital asset and tokenized securities because today financial landscape is changing and financial services is emerging with the market of digital assets, and it's hypothetical world as we may treat recently. So I think that we do everything in order to satisfy demand of our clientele.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zamira. So can we go back to Vincent? Are you with us?
Yes. No.
Glad to. Yeah, sure. So if I can just. No, what is absolutely fine. So what's in your view? What are the challenges and opportunities shaping, today's landscape of fund distribution, and how has it changed recently?
Yes, so thanks for the question. Hello everyone. Some of my colleagues in the panel already gave some of the elements that I wanted to cover, but I wanted to start from a macro level to say that the fund distribution is a quite interesting environment we are operating for the moment, because there is a lot of driver changing the market, in the sense that there is strong growth potential. We have a lot of new markets coming up. There is a lot of innovation, not only from a technical angle that has been just mentioned, but as well in terms of product available. I mean, the asset managers are very innovative in what they can propose to the different investor types. So that creates an environment which is very, very exciting. I think that it's worth mentioning that, and probably a lot of you in the room knows it, under the funds industry worldwide, it's close to 100 trillion USD. In that big market, you see three big products, being the mutual funds, the ETF, I think that you have discussed just before, and the alternative funds. So I would say that the fund distribution landscape, it's a massive playing field. And as a result, there's a lot of opportunities, but challenge. In terms of opportunities, what I wanted to highlight here, and that's the reason why we discuss here in Kazakhstan, is that we see that there is a big globalization that takes place in the funds world. And the access to the funds is becoming more and more easier. In that respect, we talk about Kazakhstan, but there's a lot of new markets that want to innovate in their financial market. As well as mentioned by Olivier, the cross-border distribution of funds can happen more easily than before thanks to some regulatory frameworks such as the UCIT that can make it quite easy for new entrants to comply with. And you have also a first platform like Euroclear, but I will not extend too much, and that are a bit the enabler for new entrants and for new investors to get access to a lot of network of asset management and the product they can offer. So first opportunities for the industry, there is a lot of global expansion. Then the second one, which is important, is that there is the diversification of the investor base. So historically, our industry was heavily exposed on the big institutional investors, but we see more and more the demographic effect that, and I put aside the US, but all over the world, we have the retail and the middle class that want to increase the exposure to financial assets. It's not any longer a matter of maintaining cash in savings and so forth. So the diversification of the investor base is quite important as well as an opportunity. The third element on the opportunities is the technological evolution. Zamir mentioned the benefit that DLT could bring, but there is also simply the digitalization of process, but as well AI, that can improve a lot the process and the cost of doing business on the mutual funds. There's also the element of linked to technology, that the technology enable innovation for the asset manager. What we see more and more is that you have not any longer the basic mutual fund and so forth, but you can have really customized product developed for the interest of a very small group of individuals. So that's also very important. And the last element I wanted to mention about the opportunities, and I think that AIFC is a good example, is that we see that regulators to support the access to their people to financial product really ease the life of the funds manufacturer, etc. So the fact that we have regulator putting in place framework that ease international players to come in new countries is very important. So that's for the opportunities. I will quickly mention some challenges, because despite the fact it's big, it's growing, we need to be aware that being active in the funds world remains a challenge, especially on the fact that to set up a fund you need to appoint a lot of intermediaries, so you need a bit of expertise. The regulatory burden, although improving, remain quite complex, essentially related to all what is AML and KYC. To invest into funds, we need to disclose almost the identity of each investor, so that can be quite complex. The second element I want to mention is the pressure on the cost and the challenge on the value of money. In our current world, and the fact that now the interest rates are much better than what it used to be a few years ago, the investor of mutual funds want to make sure that there is a decent return. And so in that regard, to ensure that the net return is quite positive for the investors, asset managers and players like ourselves as well need to make sure that our costs are optimized and there is a heavy competition that puts a bit pressure on our margin. The last one I want to mention, it's a bit counterintuitive versus what I've said before, is that technological evolution is good in the sense that it can provide opportunities to develop new product, but it has a cost, and in the sense that technology evolves, but it becomes more and more risky. I mean, we need to protect our system. So all the investment that we need to do on cyber is something that we don't need to diminish. And the fact as well that there is more and more new alternatives. A lot of the firms in the industry need to systematically re-question their offering. It was, for example, to start developing digital assets or to maintain traditional mutual funds. So that's a bit in a nutshell the way, from a pure macro perspective, I see the opportunities and the challenges, but definitely much more opportunities than challenges.
Yeah, thank you, Vincent. Those are, yes, very helpful insights. And I have a second question for you then. And in terms of geography, which markets or regions do you identify as the key targets for expanding your fund distribution networks, and what factors, of course, driving these priorities?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm representing Europe here, so I'm a platform. So we are offering solutions across the globe. So we're not deciding really on where it was expanding the distribution, but still we see a lot of data that allows me to answer your question. But first, I will start with the factor that we see drive the increase of distribution. And there are roughly 4 factors. The first one is related to the ease of doing business for international players in some countries. The second one that can drive a lot is obviously the economic growth of the countries and the maturity of its financial services. The third factor is a bit linked to the demographic of the countries and where the wealth is being held. And in a lot of regions of the world, except the US, we see that more and more, as I was mentioning before, the retail wants to get exposure into financial products. And the fourth element, which is also important, is that in some of regions of the world, by the way, including Kazakhstan, we see that there is what I call an economical diversification towards investment more in financial assets rather than natural resources. And so based on those factors, we see the world, because as I mentioned in my intro, growth is everywhere on the financial radar. But we see 3 categories. The one where we have a kind of limited to mild growth of 5%, which is Europe. And in Europe, the main drivers is related to the fact that the household and the retail investment want to get a higher exposure into financial assets than the cash. So that's really what we see the growth will happen in Europe. Then after, we have the second part, which is more Asia and Latin America, where definitely there is a massive economic growth and a strong push from the regulator of those countries to ease the access of financial product. And there, based on what we see on the data, the growth is rather in the region of 10 to 15%. And then the third categories, which is more for me the Middle East and countries like Kazakhstan, where we clearly see the push from the regulators and the authorities to develop the financial market. And we know that there is a lot of potential. So we cannot really qualify the growth, but we know that the potential for all the players is massive, in the sense that there is a lot of capital to be invested.
Thank you, Vincent. Indeed. So moving on to Nikolai. Considering your extensive experience in the area, so which geographic regions or market segments are you prioritizing for expansion, and what factors, of course, driving your focus in these areas?
Okay, let me start with some, let's say, boring stuff, these figures, yeah?
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry for this, I will just contribute some emotion a bit later, yeah? First of all, speaking about us, so we are a private equity fund, very boring, very typical private equity, focusing on tech and IT companies, with 2 funds under management. One of them was created in 2016. It's based in Jersey. And the second one was created in 2023. Right now we have about 200 million of NAV, over 20 portfolio companies, And just to describe our focus, usually we invest, let's say, from 5 to 15 million in one portfolio company, but the main criteria for us in order to invest in is, let's say, the concept of human capital. So we're really big lovers of entrepreneurs, and we really believe that, let's call it like former CIS countries founders, they're really great for, let's say IT and like new technologies businesses. And so we're really ready and still supporting them within the second fund. And we hope that many, let's say, investors underestimate, especially right now, this huge niche of digital nomads which are all over the world right now. So we calculated that about like 2-3 million of IT specialists from former Soviet Union, they are among the globe, including in Kazakhstan. There are lots of relocation. Plus, to my mind, there is a huge potential internally with a like growing population, with some initiative which we really believe in. This is about the technicalities, about the distribution. Again, we're also quite a simple guys, so we want to satisfy our investors. We have two types of investors. So first of all, it's family offices, high net worth individuals. And the second part, which is like a usual type of investors for first-time funds or for the beginners, it is called DFIs, Development Finance Institutions. So we have EBRD and Dutch Development Bank on board. And they supported us in 2016, and we are really satisfied with the way how we deal. But speaking about what we faced right now, especially during the previous 2 years, because there was a discussion today, like 2 hours ago, about compliance, about the structures, etc., etc. You know, we faced a year ago the situation when we understood that we are clients of administrators, of banks, of auditors, etc., but it looks like that we're not a client, but just we're working for them and trying to explain something every time. And in this situation, we even pay them for this, and pay much more than we paid before. So our bills, for example, for administration increased like triple in 1-2 years. And this was one of the reasons why we decided to look at some alternative, and AIFC did, to my mind, a great job, and I really believe that there is a huge potential ahead. So therefore, a year ago, we decided to move one of our structures from Jersey to Kazakhstan. You know, the last point about speaking about KYC, because today we discussed a lot and it looks like an elephant in the room. Yeah, everyone discussing KYC, but no one could explain what it is in the end of the day. Because for me, the last, one of the last, let's say, points when I decided that we should change something was that after 300 of pages of enhanced due diligence report to our Jersey administrators, they came to us and said that there is one investor, not investor, let's say one founder of our portfolio company, and our investigators could not find anything about him. And it's quite suspicious. So you understand the crazy thing that they are suspicious because we could not find anything, and therefore we need a double check and we need additional information in order to dig more to this person. So it's becoming crazy, and to my mind, like Europe, especially for, let's say, Belarusian, Russian, even Ukrainian founders, because recently we heard from US market that one of the biggest fintech companies supporting startups, they started close accounts for Ukrainian founders. So it's also crazy. The world is becoming crazy, and to my mind, Kazakhstan has, and AIFC has a huge opportunity to develop. We made our decision after 3 meetings. I will just explain you more emotionally about this. The first meeting was with AIFC, and it's a great advantage for the fund manager to have the direct access to the regulator. To my mind, it's a huge advantage, and you have such an opportunity. Neither in Jersey nor in Cyprus, we have never had an opportunity without, let's say, like lawyers, admins, and some other guys who can bring you there and represent you there. That's the first point. The second point was when we met with our advisors, it's OD Consulting. And you know, I understood that, sorry for this, but guys, they're a bit hungry. Comparing, let's say, to European fat cats who are, okay, we can see, we can consider. And here we understood that the guys, they're committed to deliver, and they're ready, even though they have never dealt with, let's say, private equity structures, et cetera, but they're ready to commit, and they're ready to work on it. And the third meeting we had like a year ago was with Astana Hub. To my mind, this is a great advantage to the ecosystem of AIFC in terms of IT development. So it's one of those, let's say, geographies where next to the infrastructure, you have potential investee companies and potential pipeline. And taking into account, let's say, our previous experience dealing with high-tech park in Belarus, so we understood that there is a potential for us not only on infrastructural part, but also on the industry part. Yeah. And that's why we're here, and thank you for this.
Interesting. So, given all that you've just shared with us, I'm quite intrigued why, what makes you think you're boring now? So, Nikolai, well, you know, does the AIFC regime indeed provide you an opportunity for private equity and venture capital development in Kazakhstan? What's your opinion on that?
The short answer, definitely yes. In order to be more specific, again, just an example. For example, if we compare the neighborhood like Russia, Belarus. In Belarus, we have such a company called EPAM, which is one of the global, let's say, outsourcing leaders among the globe. This company was started in Belarus. This company became one of the, let's say, founders and the first resident of high-tech park. And by the way, this company was supported by private equity called Russia Partners. Then they went IPO. It's extremely successful story, blah, blah, blah. But like 5-7 years after, what we saw, for example, by 2020 in Belarus, that the impact was not only on this particular case, but the impact was on the whole country and the whole ecosystem.
Right.
The revenue of IT in GDP was growing every year. New and new companies were coming to high-tech park and to the market. Because the market was small, all these companies were focused on global revenues and global market, and therefore, for example, right now, if you will analyze the global top mobile gaming industry, out of 10 companies, like 5, you will see some anchor to Belarusian founders. And even though we did some analysis, so we also had some educational projects, and we asked pupils in school, and half of all pupils, they dream to become IT specialists. So really? it's a great advantage, and to my mind, it's a huge story. Yeah. What we saw here is that even like Astana Hub, the revenue is growing. You already have a nice success story comparing to EPAM, for example, Kaspi, and therefore I believe that the generation of those people who want to do business, who want to go IT and to develop, let's say, the success story will grow. And this is where we want to invest in. And therefore, I believe that there is a huge, huge potential.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikolai. And
thank you.
Very impactful. So, can I just catch up with the second question to Olivier? Olivier, are you with us? What opportunities does Kazakhstan open for you, and again, what tools are required for the development of fund industry in Kazakhstan, in your opinion?
So, I mean, if you look at Kazakhstan, I mean, in the roadmap of the company when I joined, that was not in the map. And thanks to a family office in Luxembourg servicing families in Kazakhstan, the name is Elir, and thanks to also the fact that we are in the same building as your consulate in Luxembourg, we are in the same building as ERG. So we thought, okay, there's possibly something we are missing or we should not miss. So that was the approach, and we said, okay, there is something that we need to go for. So that was our approach towards the market. But then when you think about the market is very different from other markets we've explored so far. So, I mean, if segment by segment you look at it, I mean, retail banks do not offer me or you to buy securities or stock, but you can buy an iPhone because you've got a market. So this is very unique from that perspective. And then you've got youngsters using Freedom 24 to buy securities, Bitcoin, and possibly also shares of funds, because I think Freedom has started offering funds. And then on the wealth side, which is the second segment I have in mind, I mean, family offices are, to our opinion, are highly sophisticated and equally sophisticated as European ones, whereby wealth managers, so private bankers, do not have dedicated offering special services to clients as we have in Europe. And then institutional players, you know, they're not as exposed as Luxembourg funds or international funds, but on the sovereign side, definitely they are equal to any country. So the landscape is very much different from that perspective. So this needs to be appreciated by international players like us when we want to penetrate the market. Then when it comes to tools for the fund industry to develop, I think it's more, I mean, tools you have. I mean, you have banks, you have SWIFT, so technology-wise you've got even tokens, so you're even more advanced on the digital assets than in Europe. So if you think about tools or systems, everything is there. It's just possibly educate the population on what's the value proposition and what is the advantage of avoid savings and switch to financial instruments in the way of constructing wealth. I mean, that's my view. I don't know if the other panelists share that one.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olivier. So, dear guests, today we covered such topics as such interesting directions as the rationale for choosing Kazakhstan as a strategic location for creating funds market. We also touched upon some best practices, models for reference and probably for further adaptation here. We also went through distribution processes, strategies for development of ecosystems, and many other interesting things which I'm sure will be very helpful for you in your decision making. And now I would like to open floor for Q&A session with our dear guests. If you do have a question, please raise your hand. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you very much for the information we have received. I would like to ask the question of the Nikolai Shostak. You said that you are interested in entrepreneurs. Let's say in Kazakhstan we have a lot of entrepreneurs who would like to receive funding. What kind of criteria should they meet in order to satisfy your criteria? Thank you.
Speaking about, it's about the strategy. So I already mentioned that we primarily invest at later stages. So we are not supporting, let's say, seed and pre-seed stages. So it's like A, B. We define it as a growth stage when you already have the existing product. You already have the product market fit, and you just need additional injection in order to grow faster or to enter new markets. Speaking about some criteria, I would say that at least like 1-2 million of revenue or ARR, strategy and potential to show double digits in growth. And opportunity to enter other markets. So we invest sometimes in, let's say, local markets. So we are big fans, for example, for classified models. We have a number of investments in classified. But at the same time, the ideal still profile of investments is more about the global revenues and opportunity to grow globally, because it provides much more opportunities at exit, etc. So briefly, maybe that's all.
Thank you, Nikolai. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Anyone? Yes, please.
Thank you so much for your insightful thoughts. I have two questions. One is for Zamira. I'm really curious because you mentioned you know your client. What are their needs? What are they are seeking for? Is it just, I don't know, safety for their money, for their investments, or it's just high returns? And second question is for Nikolai. You mentioned that it's really important, human capital. I definitely agree. This is super important, but how do you evaluate, how do you understand that here is high level of human capital? Thank you.
Hi, Anna. Good to see you. Thank you so much for your question. I can say that we deal with different types of investors, and depending on their needs on their time horizon of investments, we definitely should focus and select for them suitable investments. And there is no right recipe which kind of investment everybody wants. So we usually identify specifically and at initial stage all needs and targets of investors. I could say that we have different products and we can meet almost all demand from our clientele, started from low risk profile and to high risk profile. Thank you.
About evaluation of human capital, yeah? Extremely difficult question, because you could not, let's say, make like ticks and say, hey, this is good guy, this is bad guy, yeah? What we have, and maybe this is like part of our technology, so in order to start negotiations with potential investee companies, the first due diligence we perform is HR due diligence. So we just come to the company, we have interviews with the top management, just in order to understand and to see the alignment and just how they deal with each other, who is the leader. We try to spend, let's say, at least some times, because usually the deal is like from 3 to 9 months, in average about 6-7 months in order to prepare the deal. And this is a very intensive time, so you can definitely see the person. Moreover, we try to avoid those cases where the core request from the founder is just give me money and forget about everything else. Yeah. So we try to understand how we can commit to the company. We try to analyze this. And to my mind, we're dealing well, because right now, for example, with the second fund, we have, as of now, about 3 exits. And out of 2 of these exits, the founder, they committed to our fund after the first stage when they were our co-founders in portfolio companies. So it showed that we try to set up good relations with our founders as well. Plus, we also try to, it's for the future, and due diligence is a separate part, but for the future, we also try to have like knowledges between different portfolio companies. So, for example, every year we have so-called directorship meeting where, for example, last year in Dubai it was about 100 participants. It's like a top management of all our portfolio companies coming together and just sometimes drinking together, but sometimes they're discussing business, and it's also a great value to my mind. Briefly, that's all, but it's much more, yeah, definitely difficult question. From my perspective, the educational level, the historical background, again, for Belarus, for example, the engineering staff was usually quite a big part of the economy. Here in Kazakhstan, we see huge population growth, and it's also, the government also supports, as far as we know, a lot the educational projects. And therefore, this is, to my mind, the combination how you can identify and to show, having success stories to show this chemistry of the development of entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
I have a question to Mr. Berhan. As far as I know that you have a presence in the AIFC, you have a registered company here, but with no license. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the question is whether you're planning to start doing business here in the AIFC, and whether you invest into the infrastructure projects here, or not even here, but worldwide. And what are the requirements for the EPS?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we do have I would say a legal presence in the AIFC, but we don't have a physical presence in the AIFC, and that's something that we're trying to change and working on. So thank you for the question. And why were we trying to change that? For all the reasons I was just explaining earlier as to why we think it's such an exciting hub and exciting platform for growth. In terms of what we invest in, I didn't mention that earlier. So our focus as an asset manager is on public markets. So we invest, unlike some of, unlike for example what Nikolai does, so we invest in public equities, we invest in public credit, we invest in money markets. Obviously, everything we do is Sharia compliant. So that's our area of expertise and our area of focus. So not on infrastructure, not on physical assets, not on real estate at this stage. So our sort of what we bring to the table is a very strong track record in investing in public markets through various sort of cycles. A lot of our focus on the public equity side is in the region that we're from, so in the Gulf countries, which are also, I would say, a bit like Central Asia. Well, unlike Central Asia, the Gulf countries have get a lot of headlines in terms of news flow globally. Most of that isn't necessarily positive, and for a lot of investors, that puts them off the region, global investors. That's excellent for us because that leaves us more space to get on with making a lot of money for our investors because there's a lot of growth over there. Whereas on the public credit markets, essentially what I'm talking about is sukuk, so Sharia compliant bonds, and so that is a very big asset class globally, or rather has expanded very greatly in the last 10 years. It's now a $1 trillion asset class, so we think there's a lot of potential for sukuk, both from institutions and from individuals. There was a question earlier about the type of things that people like to invest in. A lot of investors, regardless of whether they're individual or institutional, want to have a chunk of their asset allocation in income-generating assets, whether that's real estate, whether that's anything else. And so sukuk ticked that box very nicely. And whether you're an insurance company or a pension fund or an individual, fixed income, and in our area, sukuk satisfy that. So we, for example, to put some numbers into it, in US dollar sukuk that we're investing in, we have portfolios currently which we manage where the average annual return over the last few years is sort of 7-8% net of fees. After all fees are taken into account. So that's, in US dollar terms, that's relatively healthy. Obviously, I know interest rates in Kazakhstan are much higher than in the US, so you can get higher returns in local currency just because interest rates are higher, but in US dollars, those are the sort of numbers that we're looking at.
I guess we have time for one more question. Anyone? Well, if not, then dear guests, again, let me express my deep gratitude for your time, for your company, on behalf of myself, of the speakers. And let's give our speakers a round of applause then. Thank you very much. That's it for today. Thank you.
Imagine a world where your assets trade 24/7 and settle and transfer at the speed of light. Equities, bonds, and other products can be issued as digital tokens with clearly defined rights and obligations, leveraging the best of traditional finance and digital asset technology. Bitfinex Securities is a fully regulated exchange licensed for both primary market issuances and secondary market trading. And in just a few days, Tether is launching a revolutionary new platform that bridges the gap between the physical and digital worlds, making it even easier for issuers on Bitfinex Securities to create and manage tokenized securities. You are now in a world where you can ensure the true value of your assets will be realized, with your tokens traded on markets used by some of the world's largest investors. Thanks to the vision of regulatory regimes in the AIFC, and now also El Salvador, issuers and investors can interact in a fully regulated and transparent environment. Regulation is meeting innovation. Bitfinex Securities allows issuers and investors to interact more directly, with no middleman, increasing efficiency and keeping costs down. Get ready for the next generation of capital markets, where possibilities are limitless. Tether, bridging the digital and physical worlds, one token at a time. Bitfinex Securities, a global marketplace for tokenized securities.
Еркіндік деген не? Сізге лайық жайлылық, жақындарыңызбен маңызды сәттерді өткізу мүмкіндігі. Ұмытылмас эмоциялар сыйлайтын сүйікті іспен айналысу. Маңызды жайттың толық бөлшегі болу. Freedom Broker сіздің шынайы еркіндікке алғашқы қадамыңыз.
Что такое свобода? Комфорт, который ты заслуживаешь. Возможность создавать важные моменты с близкими. Заниматься любимым делом, которое дарит незабываемые эмоции. И быть полноценной частью чего-то значимого. Freedom Broker. Ваш первый шаг к истинной свободе.
Запуск этого проекта придаст импульс развитию не только экономики данного региона, но и всего Казахстана.
Nowadays, ERG represents 1/3 of the mining and metallurgical complex of Kazakhstan. We are the only manufacturer of high-grade aluminum in Kazakhstan. ERG is the world leader in ferrochrome production. ERG is a major railway operator in Central Asia. We are one of the key suppliers of electrical power in Kazakhstan. It is one of the largest suppliers of iron ore in the Eurasian region. ERG has invested more than $14 billion in the development and modernization of enterprises in Kazakhstan. ERG allocated more than $1 billion into social projects. ERG employs more than 60,000 people. ERG paid more than 3.5 trillion tenges as tax contributions to the budget of Kazakhstan over 30 years, making over 2.5% of the country's GDP. Eurasian Resources Group, to be the best at what we do, to go forward along with the world progress holding true to our values, to discover carefully the potential of the earth and humanity, ensuring prosperity for those who rely on us.
Imagine a world where your assets trade 24/7 and settle and transfer at the speed of light. Equities, bonds, and other products can be issued as digital tokens with clearly defined rights and obligations, leveraging the best of traditional finance and digital asset technology. Bitfinex Securities is a fully regulated exchange licensed for both primary market issuances and secondary market trading. And in just a few days, Tether is launching a revolutionary new platform that bridges the gap between the physical and digital worlds, making it even easier for issuers on Bitfinex Securities to create and manage tokenized securities. You are now in a world where you can ensure the true value of your assets will be realized, with your tokens traded on markets used by some of the world's largest investors. Thanks to the vision of regulatory regimes in the AIFC, and now also El Salvador, issuers and investors can interact in a fully regulated and transparent environment. Regulation is meeting innovation. Bitfinex Securities allows issuers and investors to interact more directly, with no middleman, increasing efficiency and keeping costs down. Get ready for the next generation of capital markets, where possibilities are limitless. Tether, bridging the digital and physical worlds, one token at a time. Bitfinex Securities, a global marketplace for tokenized securities.